Now we have one more topic, that is universal basic income. After that topic we will wind up. Okay. Now me and I. See, basically, when it comes to meets or when it comes to symbolic interactionism, there are two parts of self, right? I part of the self means that is the dynamic part of the self. That is something which is deep inside ourselves. Me part of the self means that is the socially dominated part of the self that is influenced by the society. Now, when it comes to that of the victims of human trafficking, their me part will be much more dominant than their I part. And the me part of them is largely the way society view them, right? So society is viewing them as victims, society stigmatize them, right? Society isolate them. So their entire self-identity will also be similar to the view that society have on them, right? So such low levels of self-identity or self-image will further lead to re-victimization of, trafficked people. Is it clear now? All right. So now let's go into the final topic, that is universal basic income. See, when it comes to universal basic income, we have to mention the positive aspects as well as the negative aspects of universal basic income, and then we will move on to the perspectives. So, what are the positive aspects of universal basic income? What all can we discuss? Reduces poverty, okay. Reduces poverty, yeah, you can mention about that. Then
more access to 3 types of capital, which is mentioned by their.
okay, access to economical, see, mainly I'll say it is mostly access is limited to economic capital, right? Yeah. Yeah. So economic capital or inequality can be reduced, that can be mentioned. Then
Empowerment of
ah,
lower class.
yeah, same point, right?
Like healthcare station.
Okay, improvement in human capital, because once they start getting that universal basic income, expenditure on health, education, etc. will increase. There are various case studies that actually show positive results related to that. Social mobility, yeah, you can mention it improves our social mobility, or instances or chances of social mobility is high. Then
Reduces this anomy in the society by giving more social inclusion.
yeah, reduces anomie, correct? Because as they are getting income, they feel secured, safe. So that reduces anomie. Then, so it can also increase social unity, right? Because how can it increase social unity, social cohesion? Because when people have or are accessing universal basic income, the competition for resources reduces. You can connect it with Durkheim. So when competition for resources in a society increases, that will lead to social conflicts. So when I am getting a fixed income from the side of government every month, then I will not have to worry about the resources, right, much. Now that reduces social conflicts, because majority of the social conflicts are associated with getting access to resources. If that is ensured, then there is no need of such conflict. So that you can mention. Then you are not addressing other aspects like think from family, marriage, religion, education. Ah. Yeah, child marriage can be reduced. Yeah, you can mention. Or you can say education of girl children will increase, right? Because as the parents have resources, especially universal basic income means parents as well as children will also have access to resources, that will increase the spending on education for girl children. Because girl children's education is not encouraged because of limited resources of the family. So as and when they get more resources, girl children's education increases, and when girl children's education increases, instances of child marriage will come down. And that will also lead to increase in economic empowerment of women. So you can connect it with education, child marriage, you can connect it with that of economic empowerment of women. Women's participation in economic activities will increase. Then From stratification, you have mentioned about social mobility, inequality, and all those stuff. Marriage and family education, we have discussed. Then, can have an impact on vote bank politics. Okay, so you can say that the populist measures as well as that kind of politics will no longer work. Okay, you can mention that can have an influence on the political views of people, because universal basic income means, uh, see, the idea is we will provide universal basic income to people and we'll cut all other, you know, measures, like all other schemes and everything will be stopped. So yeah, you can mention. Then, so instances of using freebies can be reduced. So that is a political aspect of it. Then, from a works and economic life perspective, what can you mention?
More informal.
For more okay, less informalization. Why? Because when people have access to basic income, right, they do not have to go and become part of exploitative work conditions, right? Because their life to an extent is secure because they are getting a basic income from the side of government. So now they will try to find out jobs that can give them more engagement, something that they can enjoy to do, and something which is not that exploitative. So you can say that universal basic income have the, kind of chance to reduce informalization in the economy. Informalization increases when there is availability of informal labor. So if you can cut the availability of informal labor, then formalization of economy will follow. So that can be mentioned. Then social security, yeah, social trust, social capital of the society will increase. How will social capital increase? Because less chances of conflict, less competition will lead to social cohesion, which will lead to social capital. So you can mention social capital. Then instances of child labor, right? Child labor will also reduce. Why? Because when parents get better income, they will not send their children for child labor. So one of the major reasons why child labor occur in India is because of poverty. There is no other reason for that, right? So you can mention. Then, so these are the points that you can mention: reduce child labor, reduce informal work, increase social cohesion, investment in human capital, stratification and inequality. Then, when it comes to bureaucracy, another point related to political aspect, bureaucracy can save time because now finding the beneficiaries, assessing the beneficiaries, they have to do a lot of paperwork. Now they can get rid of the paperwork and they can focus on governance only. Right? So reduce the stress and burden of bureaucracy. So that can be mentioned. Then they sought religion. Wait, 1 minute. Okay, so when it comes to that of bureaucracy, and then the point, what was that point? Yeah, you can mention about that theodicy of disprivilege concept by Weber, where he mentioned that the rise of sects and cults are higher among those who are disprivileged, right? Those who are underprivileged. So you can say that providing universal basic income can have an impact on, growth of religious sects and cults, right? New religious movements. They can reduce these kind of new religious movements. So that can be mentioned. Okay. Have you heard the concept theodicy of disprivilege? Max Weber have mentioned that when it comes to sects and cults and the growth of sects and cults, it mostly happens among the underprivileged sections of society. Okay. So removing that underprivilege will also have an impact on religious following. Then distress migration and slum proliferation, another important aspect of universal basic income, because you know that rapid urbanization and migration to urban areas are resulting from poor economic resources of rural areas or villages, right? So, and such kind of uncontrolled migration is also leading to instances of slum proliferation. So, by providing universal basic income, we can reduce distress migration as well as we can control slum proliferation in urban areas. Both are considered as social issues, right? Then finally, autonomy. See, earlier what we do is government will create a particular targeted policy, they will add beneficiaries and they will provide a one size fits all solution for the problems faced by people belonging to different sections. See, you have to understand that government programs and policies does not reflect intersectionality, right? See, whatever programs that the government provide, it does not actually understands or it does not include that intersectionality element into the program design. Now with universal basic income, we are giving autonomy to people rather than creating a one size fits all solution which does not address intersectionality. So individual autonomy also increases, at the same time intersectionality will also get addressed. Clear? Because people are given money and they can spend according to their needs. So that is the idea behind universal basic income. Clear? Next is the negatives of universal basic income. When it comes to negatives, first and foremost, it acts as a disincentive to work, because when people get income from the government, there is no need to do the work or they need not have to search for work. Second is dependency culture. People are becoming more dependent on the benefits provided by the government. So it will create a dependency culture rather than leading to increasing the capacity of people, right? So they get money, they spend their money on their basic activities, they are not concerned about capacity building, skill development, etc. It is just like they are dependent on government. Now this can have negative impact when it comes to the political scenario, right? Because politically those who provide higher amounts of universal basic income will stand a chance to get elected in the elections. So even though freebies will go out, but new types of political, kind of political linkages or political discriminations can continue because of universal basic income. Okay. Then governments can also fix universal basic income, especially during the election time. They can increase the basic income so that they get re-elected. So such kind of political interventions are possible. Then inefficient resource allocation, as this is universal, right? There is no kind of differences between different sections of population. So that means this resources that we spend on universal basic income is not targeted, right? And it reaches everyone equally. So in that sense, if you consider it, it is not equitable, right? It becomes equitable when the lower sections of population gets more and the upper sections or the middle sections get less. But here everyone will be provided equal income, which is not actually equitable. It is equal but not equitable, right? Is it clear? And finally, erosion of social safety nets. Now, with universal basic income, government will eliminate all other social safety nets, and some of which are actually used by the marginalized sections and which is very important for them. Say for example, weaker or marginalized sections like tribal population. If some of the support which is provided by the government right now is taken away, and if they are given this universal basic income, that might have negative impact on the social development. Clear? Because some of the activities that the government does, like especially regarding health, because when it comes to tribal population, they are not aware of the health impacts of alcohol, say for example, or they are not much aware about the nutritional aspects, right? So if government takes away these health related support that they are providing to the tribal population, it can have an impact on the social development. Is it clear? So that can be mentioned. Then now let's move on to the sociological perspective. What are the various sociological perspectives associated with it? First is the structural functional perspective. So how can you connect it with structural functional perspective? One is from a functionalist angle, it can increase social integration. Why? Everyone is getting resources. Yeah.
Sir, PC in current affairs ഈ ടൈം തന്നെ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ ഇവിടെ നിന്ന് ലെഫ്റ്റ് ആവട്ടെ.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
So when it comes to that of structural functional perspective, one is you can mention about the social integration angle, right? How is it related to social integration? Because when everyone is getting resources, there will be less social conflict, right? People will be less social conflict and less competition, which will increase social integration. Second angle that you can mention is you can also use systems theory here. How can you use systems theory? Because changes in one part of the system will lead to changes in other parts, right? So according to when we consider it from functionalist perspective, changes in technology and new forms of work like artificial intelligence, right, will lead to loss of jobs for people. So the one of the major threat that we talk about AI is that it will lead to loss of employment opportunities. So in such instance, if universal basic income is provided to people, it can act as a support, right? It can reduce the negative impact of AI on society. Is it clear? So from a structural functional perspective, changes in technology, changes in nature of work, especially induced by artificial intelligence, that actually requires change in the social welfare and social support provided by the government. So in that sense, universal basic income can be considered as change in one part leading to the changes in other parts. It I think, see, better to connect it from a point of view where the technological developments leads to social change, especially in the nature of work, right? Increase in unemployment, increase in poverty. So such instances can happen. So such economic changes in the form of new technology will require some kind of intervention from the side of the government, right? So change in the economic situation actually creates a need for changes in the way government provides support to people, and that is universal basic income. So changes in economic system leading to changes in the welfare provided by the government. Clear? So likewise you can connect universal basic income and changes in economy. From Marxist perspective, from the Marxian perspective, it is mentioned that, or you can consider it as consumerism, right? Because when people are provided with universal basic income, they will start consuming with that money, and increase in consumption will lead to increase in profits for the capitalist system. So from a Marxian perspective, universal basic income can be considered as a mode of consumerism and capitalistic exploitation, where more money is given to people, which will reach the capitalist. Clear?
So you can also say about it hinders the social change.
It hinders social change because again it weakens class solidarity, right? It weakens it spreads false consciousness, right? It's in the sense that state is supporting the people or state. Louis Althusser have mentioned about that, right? Ideological state apparatus, where state is creating false consciousness. They are acting as a kind of committee of capitalists, right? So in that sense, you can mention about weakening of solidarity. You can mention about spreading of false consciousness. You can use the concept of ideological state apparatus. So that's all possible there. See, as I mentioned, I'm just giving you a kind of an overall idea and some of the points, right? You can also build further points into this framework. Clear? And finally, from feminist perspective, how can you view this from feminist perspective? It's a positive aspect, like women will get more autonomy, right? As women get money, they can use it for their own purposes. They will have control over that kind of money, and that will lead to overall economic autonomy. From interaction perspective, right? From needs perspective or interactionist perspective, you can say that the meaning people attach to work will change. Right now, work is considered as a means to an end, where people are working just to get the resources for sustaining their life. But universal basic income can change the meaning that people attach to work from being means to an end to end in itself. Right? So the concept of work, leisure, etc. might change in the society. Especially one more thing that you have to understand is, now identity of a person is associated with the kind of work they do, but universal basic income may also change that identity or meaning that people attach to that identity. Clear? So 2 points. One is identity and changes in identity because of different meaning that people attach to work. And first one is, as people start attaching different meaning to work, right, the nature of work will also change. From just being an end in it, means to an end, it can become an end in itself. All right. And conflict theories. When it comes to conflict theories, they say that it is just treating the problem at the surface level. It is not treating the root cause. According to conflict perspective, the real reason behind the inequality and the problems associated with inequality is due to power imbalances. Right? Few people are using their power to exploit another section of society. Now that power imbalances will not change here. The only thing is, government is providing those who are disadvantaged as well as those who are advantaged some money. Right? It doesn't actually treat the root cause of the problem. So conflict perspective, when we consider, these issues can continue even if we provide universal basic income. All right. Clear? So that's it with the perspectives, and that's it with these 4 topics. Okay. Clear? Any doubt, anyone? Online? See, basically, now when it comes to work, people generally consider work as a means of livelihood. They have to sustain their life, so they need to get some money. Now, that money is provided by the government through UBI. Now, people need not have to do work just for the sake of getting money. Now, they can work for their happiness as well, for getting satisfaction. So, as a result, people will start following, different pursuits. Right? They might follow their passion. They might do things which actually interest them. Right? So such kind of change in the nature as well as the way people view work will be there.
So if any equal and if it's unequitable, how will it address the intersectionality?
Yeah, technically the problem is, one is we are mentioning that it is addressing intersectionality because people are given money and they can choose what they want, right? Usually in government schemes that doesn't happen. People are not given a choice to select. Instead, government designs that particular program and it will be a rigid program from which people will have to, just be the beneficiary and get whatever is provided by the government. Now people have the right to choose. They have the autonomy to choose. So that is one reason why we say that there is intersectionality and it promotes intersectionality. But on the other hand, equality and equity, when it comes to that angle, we are not focusing on intersectionality, but instead we are focusing on the wasteful use of resources. Right, because if everyone is given the equal amount, then that means those who are not the actual beneficiaries and those who do not require that support are also getting that money. Right, the right thing to do is such people should be excluded and that money should be provided to the, the most marginalized sections. But that is not happening here. So one is intersectionality, it's positive. The other is wasteful use of resources. Clear?